So before Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, there was a rumor of a Batman Beyond game. So I'm going to tell you my pitch for Batman Beyond Arkham. But there's one problem. I barely know anything about Batman Beyond. So it's time to watch the show. I'm back. Now I absolutely loved Batman Beyond. It was such an amazing show, and I even watched the Return of the Joker movie. But anyways, let's get on with it. Okay, so the first thing that I want to deep dive onto is the gameplay in the open world. So first, let's talk about the combat and Predator missions. Now, these missions would be a lot like the original Arkham ones, but it would have more of an emphasis on gadgets. For example, Batman Beyond can turn invisible. Now, that would be a bit OP, so let's put it on a cooldown. Also, the batarangs would come out of his wrist. Just a ton of different gadgets. Now let's talk about the traversal, and that also segments into the open world. And of course, the open world isn't Gotham, it's Neo-Gotham. It would have 3 different levels. Not like levels in video games, because I know it's like a video game, but I'm talking about like floor levels. So to start, we have the bottom, which is where most of the criminals are. Then we have the middle, which looks up to the top. And the top is the corrupted billionaires. And also, just like in the cartoon, I think that Batman Beyond should be able to dive. Kind of like the diving in X-Men Origins Wolverine, which would be a really cool mechanic. Also, you'd still have the grapple gun. But Batman Beyond has jet boots. But flying in video games is really hard to execute, so it'll be on recoil. But don't worry, the grappling is never on recoil. Also, I think that detective vision should go away. Now hold on, there's a replacement. Now, you get to use sonar, which basically works the exact same way. Anyways, that's it for the gameplay. Now, it's time to go to the story. Alright, so let's talk about the story, and I don't think that this should take place after the Suicide Squad game. We're just gonna say that the Suicide Squad game never happened. So that means Bruce Wayne is actually still alive. But he didn't, show everyone that he wasn't dead. He just stayed, acting dead. But anyways, I don't think that this should be an origin story for Terry McGinnis. Origin stories just don't work well in video games. So we're just gonna have a little recap in the beginning. So let me tell you about the Arkham version of his origin. So basically, Bruce Wayne faked his death. After that, he hid in a cave. A person that I'll tell you about later bought Wayne Enterprises. Terry McGinnis gets chased by a gang that I'll tell you about later, finds the cave, and then breaks into it. Helps Bruce Wayne survive by giving him some pills, then goes home, realizes that his dad got 200 pumped, then becomes Batman Beyond. So now let's talk about the villains. So first let's talk about the 3 main villains in the main conflict. Well, the first one isn't really a villain, it's more of a gang, and they're called the Jokers. The Jokers are a gang that dresses up in Joker-like costumes, trying to keep him alive, you know. And then Derek Powers is the new owner of Wayne Enterprises, and he called it Wayne Powers. And Terry McGinnis' dad actually worked for him, but his dad made a file that shows everything bad about Derek Powers, so he paid the Jokers to kill him. But then Derek was in a chemical reaction, and he could just peel his skin off to show green. And it would also make his temper a little bit angrier. And while that would be happening, there would be a new villain around town named Blight, which is like a green skull, but it's actually Derek. So he makes a meeting at Wayne Powers, and showing that his son, Paxton Powers, would be the new owner of the company. They ask why, and then he has a temper tantrum revealing himself to be Blight. But and then Paxton tries to kill his dad, while all the Joker stuff is happening. But let's talk about all the other villains in the main story. Now, the first boss fight in the game are actually the Didi twins, and they're a part of the Jokers, and they're the granddaughters of Harley Quinn, and they're kind of psychotic. Now we have someone who wasn't in the cartoon, but would make a lot of sense to be in this game. That's Red Hood. We kind of try to stop him from ruling the criminal underworld. That would make a pretty good side plot in the main story. Don't worry, we'll get to side missions soon. Alright, now we're finished with the main story. now it's time to go to the side missions. And there's a lot of them. Alright, so now we're at the final part, the side missions. And just so you know, these are like actual full-on stories. Not as long as the main story, but still like full-on stories. And the first one is called Splicers. So Terry goes to school one morning and he sees that most of the people in there look like those people from Spider-Man Unlimited. And his girlfriend Dana tells him that they're a new thing called Splicers. And basically those can give you like animal-like habits. One of them being looks. But as the story goes, Terry learns about the dark side of them and tries to stop it. Also, just so you know, all of the side missions will end with a boss fight. Alright, the next one is called Spellbound. And it's about Terry McGinnis going against one of his new foes, which is one of my favorites, Spellbinder. His gimmick is that he can basically create illusions. And he's so cool. The next one is called Sound Testing. So the premise of it is basically Paxton Powers wants to kill Batman Beyond because he might take down his company. So he hires a man named Shriek. And he has this suit which can basically like change sound. Like he can mute it or use it to make it louder. And also Paxton sends out some of his men. So yeah, let's just go to the next one. The next one is called Inkling. And it'll be about a villain named Ink. She's basically just a bunch of goo. And she basically like sneaks into the Batcave with her powers. And then there's just this rampage where you try to stop her. The next one is called Lost Soul, which first shows a flashback of a man named Robert Vance. And due to some technical difficulties, he had to put himself inside of a screen. And then years later, a random worker put him back on again. I mean on the screen. And then now he can turn the power off anywhere. So there are just missions where you have to turn back on the power in places. But at the end, he hacks the suit, so you have to wear the original Batsuit with none of the gadgets. Then we have a side mission called Curse of the Cobra. And it's the biggest side mission where you have to try to fight Cobra, who tries to have Terry McGinnis' best friend, Max, fall in love with him. But Cobra is actually cold-blooded, so he tries to make the entire city of Neo Gotham a volcano. And then the next side mission is called Stalker, which is the last side mission. So there's this guy named Stalker, and he's stalking a bunch of people. So in different missions, you have to try to stop him, which would make some pretty cool scenarios. So that's it for the side missions and the entire game. Well, you've seen it. That was it. That was my pitch for Batman Arkham Beyond.